Watch this vidcast, or I'll gouge your eyes out.
Welcome back, Horror Hounds, to Ghostman Rivera's Horror Show podcast.
I'm Mike Ghostman Pickle.
And I'm James Rivera. Today we have a brief interview with up-and-coming filmmaker Jack Kiersky. He has two film on the festival circuit right now called SUSHI Night. Very good film that I enjoyed a lot. And we're going to be discussing the new pop culture sensation all over HBO, Lovecraft Country. But before we get to that, we have to get to...
Horror show news.
The Walking Dead is ending after 11 seasons. Surprise, surprise.
Surprise of surprises. The Babysitter Killer Queen is dropping today on Netflix.
Nice. And USA Today ranks Zach Bagans' Haunted Museum as the #1 best haunted destination in America.
And lastly, Ashley Lawrence and Keith David are joining the second season of Creepshow on Shudder. So the first bit of news is Walking Dead, right?
Yeah, the real shocking news that The Walking Dead is
shocked by this.
Is ending after 11 seasons. So the series will end in 2022 at the end of an extended 24-episode season 11. Showrunner Angela Kang will return for a spin-off series starring the Daryl and Carol characters. And she's developing that with Scott Gimple, who's also developing an anthology series called Tales of the Walking Dead, focusing on both new and old characters. The season 10 finale, originally set for April before the pandemic, will air as a special episode on October 4th. And then right after that episode on October 4th, there's another spin-off series that's premiering, The Walking Dead: The World Beyond. It debuts right after, and there's also a Rick Grimes movie in the works at Universal.
So The Walking Dead is dead, but it's not actually dead.
So they're ending it, and then they're just spreading it out to the wind everywhere and hoping one of them sticks, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you throw enough things at a wall, something's going to stick, right?
Yeah.
So my take on this is I think they finally got the message because it's getting diminishing returns. I think I mentioned this on the podcast. Even though it actually still has good ratings, it's not good ratings by the standards of The Walking Dead. Each season, it shaves off another chunk of viewers, and I think if they stretched it too long, like another 20 seasons like they originally said they would end up embarrassed by the end and have hardly any audience left. So I think it's smart to go out while there's still a reduced but significant audience there to appreciate what they're doing. And it's a way for them to say, okay, we're finally closing all of it off, but they're really still going to milk it to death because we still have Fear the Walking Dead. Let's not forget that. So interesting choices. That's what I'll say about that.
Well, I've noticed that even some of the best shows, if they go this long, it starts to experience some viewer fatigue. Where no matter where the story goes, you can't please everyone with either the show goes in a different direction and a section of the audience doesn't like that, or the show stays the same and the audience doesn't like that. But I think it's even more than that with The Walking Dead. It's not only diminishing returns and diminishing ratings, it's diminishing quality. And this is a show that I loved for the first few seasons. Right up until I even enjoyed it for a little while longer after Glenn got killed. It just went off the rails as soon as Glenn got killed. That was the moment right there where they killed a beloved character, and I think they kind of killed the spirit of the series at that time, because it just seemed to go downhill and they were floundering. And then they got the showrunner Angela Kang, and I personally, I mean, no offense to her, but I just don't think she's a good showrunner. I've seen her talking on The Talking Dead, the show that comes on after The Walking Dead, and just some of the decisions she was making just didn't seem very creative. They just seemed to be just like we said, throwing things against the wall until they stick. It just seemed like she was all over the place, and that's what makes me kind of weary about her coming on to all these spinoffs, because it's going to have that same energy, those same type of willy-nilly decisions that kind of ruined a good show and kind of ran it right into the ground. Yeah. And we've been following. Well, I've been following it. You lost interest in it a long time ago.
Yeah.
But I've been following it, even though I haven't been enjoying it, trying to see when it's going to ignite some of its magic that it had in the beginning. And I saw glimpses of greatness. I think it was episode 10. One of the best episodes of the series. So I saw that they can still do excellent episodes, but I think it's just too many bad decisions along the way has just run it into the ground, and I'm even sick of it now.
So do you think that they're gonna, because Angela Kang is still the showrunner as it's ending, do you think she has a good idea for how to end it? I mean, there is a template there. The comic book actually ended not too long ago, actually. So there is like a certain sort of template to follow that might be satisfying. Do you think she's going to do that?
Well, I'm optimistic that they'll end it with a bang, because they showed in season 10, in episode 10 of this last season, that they can still do something great. So hopefully there won't be any more filler in this last season. They've got plenty of source material to go from, as long as they don't try to spread it too thin in order to have more storylines for the other spinoffs and stuff, you know. And I'm still cautiously optimistic about the spinoffs, because maybe this showrunner Angela Kang will be a little better with a fresh idea instead of coming in and trying to fix one. Because I haven't tracked it closely, but it might have been going downhill before she even came on. So some of her decisions may have been just trying to revive it, and it just didn't work.
Yeah, I could see that.
Well,
Well,
we'll see. There's always hope.
if nothing else, I hope it at least finishes on a bang and somewhat redeems itself in a way that can send audiences off satisfied. But we shall see.
Yeah.
We shall see. So another bit of news that I find very interesting, well, if not interesting, kind of exciting. The Babysitter Killer Queen has dropped on Netflix today at the time of this recording. So by the time this podcast gets up in a couple of days, it'll be all over Netflix. The Babysitter, as you know or don't know, is the Netflix horror film from a few years ago, directed by McG, starring Samara Weaving. I thought I'd say it's more on the light, I guess, I don't know if that's the right word. It's a little bit more lighthearted in terms of horror, but I found it very enjoyable, funny, suspenseful, and I love Samara Weaving in it. This one, unfortunately, does not have Samara Weaving, but it does have returning cast members like Judah Lewis as Cole Johnson, the little kid from the original. This is the synopsis. 2 years after defeating a satanic cult led by his babysitter, B, Cole once again has to outsmart the forces of evil when old enemies unexpectedly return. I haven't heard too much about it, but I hear that they upped the gore on this quite a bit. Like any horror sequel, like you would expect out of any horror sequel.
Well, like you said, the first one felt very lighthearted, but for a lighthearted movie, it sure had a lot of gore and a lot of violence, you know?
Yeah.
It almost seemed out of place, but it was just the right balance. I think Samara Weaving is what helped balance it with those extremes. So I'm curious to see how it'll go without Samara Weaving. But I am a fan of McG. Like I said, he had his hand in creating the Supernatural series I was just raving about last week.
Perfect. How different is this from Supernatural in your opinion, like in terms of tone? Because I don't watch Supernatural. Is it a similar tone, or is it a lot different?
Maybe a similar tone when in some of the lighter episodes of Supernatural, but Supernatural is much deeper and more emotional and has some sadness to it, where Babysitter is just all fun and games and silliness.
Okay. So you think this is McG having a little bit more fun with his storytelling?
Yeah, but you can see the same kind of competence in the storytelling and the filmmaking, you know.
Perfect. So I'm looking forward to this. I'll be checking it out sometime this weekend. Nice to have a new horror film out, because I'm not making any trips to the theater anytime soon. So got to keep reading us these new horror films.
Yeah. So our next story is about the great Zach Bagans. As you know, if you listen to the podcast, I'm a big fan of Zach Bagans and the Ghost Adventures TV series on the Travel Channel. And as I said before, I really don't watch any kind of ghost hunting shows, but there's something about this show. I think that Zach Bagans is an empath, and I think that draws spirits to him. So I've seen there's some silliness going on in the show. You know, the guy's freaking out over noises and stuff, but still, I think they get some seriously compelling evidence. And I was excited to hear, back when I heard that Zach Bagans was first putting a haunted museum together. It's located in Las Vegas. So it was ranked on USA Today's #1 best haunted destination in America. And it makes me even more excited to go. And to give you an idea what the museum is all about, Zach also purchased recently serial killer John Wayne Gacy's belongings from his stepdaughter, including paintings, letters, the last Polaroid he took, and his last pack of cigarettes. The items are displayed in the true crime exhibit of the museum behind the actual prison bars of Gacy's cell. Tickets start at $48 with the RIP All Access tickets going for $79. And here's the description of the official description of the museum. Zach has personally curated and designed a bone-chilling experience that blends his cursed collection of curiosities with the true accounts of decades-old malevolent hauntings and rituals that once took place inside the historic 1938 Wingert Mansion. This tour-guided journey navigates through creepy winding hallways, secret passageways, and over 30 themed rooms that rival scenes from Hollywood horror films containing objects like Dr. Jack Kevorkian's death van, Charles Manson's bone fragments, The Conjuring 3's movie's real-life Devil's Rocking Chair, Peggy the Doll, and come face-to-face with the world's most haunted object, the Book Box.
So is this giving the Warrens Museum a run for its money as far as the best place to visit for haunted artifacts and haunted objects?
I think so, and I think that was Zach's original inspiration for this museum. But I think he took that concept and really expanded on it to a huge place. And I'm pretty familiar with it because he's investigated it a few times. And he recently, during lockdown, he investigated his own museum. And for a show that has run this many, it's in its 20-something seasons now. I think it's 23 or 24th season. And for a show to run that long and some of their scariest episodes be in his own museum is pretty impressive. And it's got some pretty convincing evidence.
So how is this going to work with regards to the virus and the lockdown right now? Are they going to be letting smaller groups of people in? Is there going to be distancing or mask regulations, or are they just treating it like normal?
There's a lot of regulations. Zach is particularly careful about the pandemic. Okay. So, and he has respiratory problems like I have, so he has to be extra careful with it. So they only allow 6 people in the museum at one time, and if you see how huge this thing is, that's not many people at all. And that you have to wear masks at all times, and they practice the social distancing and all that. So they're very careful about that, and they're still running through the pandemic.
See, people, even ghost hunters take the pandemic seriously, so can you. So,
yeah. I've been wanting to go for a while, and we were actually planning a trip to go before the lockdown, and then I kind of threw a wrench in.
Yeah.
But I'll definitely have to report on it when I go.
All right, sounds exciting. Sounds like it's the hot ticket for Halloween. Fingers crossed, it still comes out like normal.
Yeah.
So last bit of news is Ashley Lawrence and Keith David are joining the 2nd season of Shudder's Creep Show. I like this idea. So production is now safely underway on the 2nd season of Shudder's horror anthology series Creep Show. And the first casting news is that Hellraiser star Ashley Lawrence will appear in the new season, along with Keith David, best known for The Thing, and The Walking Dead actor Josh McDermott will also be making an appearance on Creep Show. I think this is great news. Now that Creep Show is a television series and it keeps going on, if it keeps going on throughout the years as one of Shudder's staple programs, I imagine we're going to see a big raft of different horror movie stars and cult icons guest starring and coming through on several different episodes. So good news to me. I already really enjoyed the first season. I didn't think it was perfect. I thought there was room for improvement in some areas, but I feel by the time the season ended, the show kind of figured out what it was going for and what it was trying to do with its version of horror.
Yeah, it was hit or miss for me, but even when it missed, it was pretty good.
Yeah.
So there was nothing, I don't think it was anything in the first season that was outright bad. It was just some episodes were better than the others, but you're right, it did get better as the episodes went along, so hopefully they'll keep carrying that level of quality into the next season.
Who are some people you would like to see on the Creep Show? I have one who I think needs to make an appearance.
Who?
We need Robert Englund on Creep Show. He needs to make an appearance. I don't care what it is. I don't care how. But give him a significant role on one of the episodes.
And we need some Tom Atkins in there.
Tom Atkins. That's another one. What about Michael Berryman? Gotta get
Oh
some
yeah.
agreement in there. And I think it's time Stephen King made his return to the Creep Show universe.
Oh, that would be cool.
I really enjoy Shudder's original programming right now. As of right now, though, I still have to say the best thing on Shudder as far as original programming is probably The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs. Even though I know they're technically airing movies that already exist, I think that's probably the best original series they have right now.
Yeah, especially since it really doesn't matter what movie he hosts. It's always good, even if the movie's not that good, the show is good because of Joe Bob and Darcy.
And now, an interview with Jack Kiersky. Enjoy.
Horror show exclusive.
So I want to welcome to the podcast Jack Kiersky. He is an up-and-coming filmmaker. His short film Sushi Night is currently on the festival circuit, and he also did another short film not too long ago, Behind the Curtain. How are you doing today, Jack?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Pretty good, pretty good. How's your lockdown going?
Lockdown, it's been getting better. It's been better than before during April.
Mm-hmm.
April, thank God.
So you staying productive right now?
I'm staying I'm staying productive and I actually kind of like put my filmmaking on hold because of like the whole coronavirus thing's going on, but I'm starting to like get back into it.
Do you think the lockdown has affected Sushi Night? Because it still seems to be doing well on the festival circuit.
Festivals, well, long story short, it's been just like you said, it's been going well as festival circuit, but long story short, originally it was supposed to premiere at horror film festival that's based in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, last month of August, but unfortunately it got postponed till October, and they're doing it online because of the whole coronavirus.
Okay. So I'm gonna get started. How was it growing up in Miami, Florida?
It actually has been pleasant. Sure, reality has been like ups and downs being raised in Miami, Florida, but before I was raised in Florida, I actually came from Broward, which is where I was raised before.
Were you into horror movies from a young age?
Young age, well, from a young age, I started to like get a glimpse of horror movies when I was around like when I was like 9 and 10, and while my parents being around, I actually would secretly watch horror movies on like Showtime or Cinemax from back in the day when, I don't know if they still do, but they used to like show a lot of horror movies in those channels. So I started to get like the glimpse of starting to like horror movies. But when it comes like getting to horror movies like seriously and depthly, it wasn't like until like later on around like in my teens.
Okay.
So what first got you into the filmmaking process and made you want to be a writer and director?
I'm a writer director. Well, when it comes to like on the art standpoint, when I was a kid, I used to like draw. Like I used to be into drawing. I used to be in drawing, but then I used to be in drawing, and a lot of my friends I found during that time told me that I have a knack of it. But then somehow the passion like faded away from me. So throughout from my from my pre-teens until my until like my late teens, I took like a hiatus from the arts. So however, when I got into college, Miami-Dade College, I actually was deciding which major I should get into and which major I should get into, and then I actually found out that, and at that point, I actually wanted to get back into arts, and I actually found out that they have like a film program, Miami-Dade College, and then from there, I decided to pursue to major in film production, Miami-Dade College. But what really got me into wanting to do filmmaking is that during that same year, same year, like from there, what from when I decided to major in film, it actually made me want to like watch like the behind the scenes videos on YouTube, also the behind the scenes featurettes on like special features on my DVDs and Blu-rays. So from there, that's where like the filmmaking bug hit me, and the filmmaking like started to like grow on me slowly.
So where did the idea for Behind the Curtain come from for that short film?
So the idea from Beyond Current, actually, believe it or not, the idea actually came from so when I was a kid, when we were like moving into a new home in Miami, and this is when we first moved to Miami. When we were moving into a new home in Miami, so I used to be afraid of like going to the bathroom at nighttime, especially when it was like I was like pitch black, because I thought that there would be like some kind of monster like or like demon from there, and like demon in here. So but then like years later, around around late 2017, when I actually had like another short film project, which was like really ambitious at the time, and it was like kind of falling apart. So I wanted to move on to our project and think of some like fresh ideas. So that memory came up to me, and from there I started to develop the idea from there, and then I just outline it into a story, and I kept writing the script until I felt like it was ready to shoot. So here it is, Behind the Curtain.
What are some of the films that inspire you as a writer, and what are some of the films that inspire you as a director? Are they the same films?
Oh, same films as both the writer and director?
Yeah.
Good question. Well, I'd say one of the films that inspire me as a writer and director doesn't have to be horror.
That could be anything.
No. Yeah, anything.
Anything. Well, on the writing directing, like on the horror standpoint, I'd say the film that really like got me into making horror would have to be so back in 2014, when I first started to get into film school, I actually that was the same year I actually first watched Sleepaway Camp. Sleepaway Camp. That's a film that actually inspired me into like making horror films that are original. I mean, sure there will be like cliches in your hair, but the twist and originality could be worked around with, because everybody may think that Sleepaway Camp is Friday the 13th ripoff because it takes place at summer camp, but the story around it's original, especially the twist in the end.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you like Sleepaway Camp more than Friday the 13th?
13th? To be honest, yes, I do.
So do I. I agree with that one. So I was going to ask you, how do you get the I know these are only short films, but how do you get your budgets ready for this? Or do you have to mostly wing it?
Budgets, well, I haven't got across the round of like asking funding from like investors, nor doing an Indiegogo fundraising campaign, but so it's usually by whatever's out of my pocket.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever's out of my pockets. Yeah.
Okay. So you write, produce, direct, and edit your short films. So what would you say is the most challenging part of the entire process?
Entire process of out of those four, right?
Yeah.
Out of those four, I'd say in my opinion, it would have to be producing, especially trying to figure out like my actors and crew members' schedules.
Where did the idea for Sushi Night come about?
come about. So the idea of Sushi Night came about. So one day, so one, I love sushi, and second, I love horror movies, and I thought to myself, to myself, what if there was actually a horror movie that is about sushi? Because as whether I'm wrong or not, I don't think there has been ever like a horror film that we see about sushi. But the main inspiration of Sushi Night came from Misery and the torture scene from Audition. So how the idea actually how the concept actually popped into my head is that, so I was watching Misery one day and I thought to myself, what if there's a psychotic woman who's a sushi lover and tortures a guy for not eating her sushi constantly, and from there that's where the concept came to me, and I started to develop the story and write the script, and here it is. Sushi Night is now in the film festival run.
I watched both Behind the Curtain and Sushi Night, and it seems like even though they're very different films, it seems like you're building up to a certain style, and it seems like you're building up to a feature. Do you have a feature in mind that you want to do, or you just want to do shorts for the time being?
Well, for now, short films. But however, I do have some potential horror film ideas for a feature film.
Okay. So do you see yourself doing a feature film anytime, let's say in like the next 5 years?
Yes, definitely. Or better yet, actually less than 5 years, maybe like in a couple of years.
Okay, that's better. What projects do you have on the horizon now? Any short films coming up?
Horizon. So my next short film, it's actually currently in development. I'm actually currently revising the script. And I'm actually hoping to shoot it sometime later this year, before this year ends.
So is that one the Newman Residence?
No. Actually, that's one that actually kind of like fell apart because it was too ambitious.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, but however, that's not a horror either. That's more a drama thriller.
Oh, okay.
Earlier, you said you got into arts because you used to like to draw when you were younger. And one of the things that I noticed about Sushi Night, it has some very interesting shots, the way that it kind of like establishes the setting in the area. Mm-hmm. I wanted to know, do you draw storyboards before you shoot your short films, or do you just go in and kind of like just base it on intuition?
I just go in based on intuition. Well, I usually have like the storyboards in my head. So instead of doing storyboards, I'll just work on the shot list with my cinematographer.
Do you want to continue directing only the projects that you write, or would you be open to directing a script from another writer?
Well, for now, I actually prefer directing based on the scripts that I write. But probably when the time comes, I'd be open to directing a script that's written by another writer.
Okay. So, do you edit all of your own short films?
Yes. Since I have like the decent eye for like pacing and continuity, so yes.
Okay. Would you recommend to other filmmakers to edit their own work?
And their own work, and they prefer to edit the films themselves, and they think that they have like a decent eye for like continuity and also the pacing, and also they could like and of course they could see how the movie's going to be edited heads. Absolutely.
You mentioned some of the older films that inspired you. Are there any recent horror films that you're impressed with, or that are inspiring you?
Impressed with? Well, I was impressed with what was it? I actually really was impressed with. There's this horror film. It's actually a viral horror. Oh, it comes at night. It comes at night. I was impressed about it. I mean, the way it was made, especially on how like very atmospheric it is.
So I was gonna ask you, what would you say are your top 5 horror movies?
My top 5 horror movies. So my top 5 will be number 1, Sleepaway Camp. 2, John Carpenter's Halloween. 3, the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. 4, it would be what was 4? What was 4? The Shining.
Okay.
And 5, it would be Inside, the French horror film from 2007.
Some great choices.
Yeah.
So what's the ultimate goal for your career? Would you like to continue to be a horror filmmaker, or you want to delve into other genres?
Well, for my goal right now, it is to become a established horror filmmaker. But I'm also open to like making films that are like outside the horror genre as well.
Where's the Sushi Night? It's on the festivals right now. What festivals has it played in, or is it going to play in?
Yes. So far it's it got played at the Filler Suspense Film Festival, and that was more of a online film festival. And the other one is Horror Movie Freaks, and that's playing. They're actually not so sure what's the location, but they're actually playing around the second week of October, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Called Horror Movie Freaks. Yeah.
I noticed there's an audience reaction video of Sushi Night. Where was that filmed at?
Where was that filmed at? It was actually filmed at in their own homes, I would assume.
Oh, that's cool. It's somebody else put that together?
Oh yeah, somebody else like edited and put that together.
Oh, that's nice.
Sure. So before we go, where could the audience see Sushi Night? Are you making it available widely through YouTube right now, or are you waiting for the festival circuit to run?
Yes. So my plan is that I'm actually planning to like release Sushi Night through available for the public on YouTube, YouTube Vimeo by around early 2021.
Okay, so where can fans keep up with your work on social media and stuff?
They could keep it up through my Facebook and Instagram.
Okay, just search your name.
Yeah, search my name.
All right, sure. We'll be sure to put a link on the podcast. Well, I wanted to thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, Jack. I really like your work, and I wish you all the luck in your all future endeavors.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure.
Horror show exclusive.
The next thing we're going to discuss, HBO Max's Lovecraft Country.
There's HBO and HBO Max.
It's developed by Misha Green, based on a novel by Matt Ruff, with executive producers including J.J. Abrams and Jordan Peele. I have to mention all the many standouts in this show as far as acting. Journey Smollett, especially as Letitia Letty Lewis, and Jonathan Majors as the awesome character Atticus Freeman. Ingenue Ellis as Hippolyta Freeman. It's Atticus's aunt. And Courtney B. Vance as George Freeman, the uncle. Wunmi Musaku as Ruby Baptiste, that's Letty's sister. Michael Kenneth Williams as Montrose Freeman, that is Atticus's dad. And Abby Lee as Christina Braithwaite, and Jordan Patrick Smith as William, the sidekick or partner of Christina Braithwaite. And all excellent acting across the board. It's a massive crew with a high-end production value. It's an excellent mix of practical makeup effects and CGI. Much of the effects are done by K&B Effects, by the way, which if you want something to look realistic, get K&B Effects. Mm-hmm. Superb cinematography from Robert McLachlan, who did the Final Destination movie. He did Final Destination 1 and 3, and he also did Westworld Game of Thrones, Ray Donovan. So that shows why the cinematography is so good. Great set design, wardrobe, score, music, and sound design is all top notch, and the stunts are awesome. And on top of the top notch writing, directing, and storytelling too. So bringing horror into such an emotionally charged story and surroundings makes it even more grounded, exciting, and very impactful. This is some of the best filmmaking I've seen in horror in a long time.
So basically, it sounds like another HBO television series.
Yeah.
So I actually enjoy this show quite a bit. I think it's doing something very new and fresh for the horror genre. And we've always talked about on this podcast how horror is a perfect genre to explore real world fears. The way that I'd say Night of the Living Dead kind of has elements of racism in the 1960s coming out during civil unrest during the civil rights movement. I kind of get that type of feeling off of the show. Did you get a Night of the Living Dead vibe off of the show? There's one particular episode of the series where there are white police officers who have to band together with a few black people, holed up in a cabin, and they are under attack. They're under threat from these giant vicious monsters that they see and can rip them apart so easily. And even under such circumstances, the white officers seem incapable of trusting the black people around them and giving them weapons so they could all fight off the enemies together. And I think one of the things that it shows is how powerful prejudice could be, that even in the face of imminent danger and monsters, people still cling to some of their beliefs. And I think a lot of those ideas is what drives the show. It's that cross between real life horror, like segregation, because it takes place in the 1950s before society in the United States anyway was desegregated. So it really plays off of like very real world fears, but gives you these spectacular fears at the same time. I really think all the monster designs are really original, and it's very imaginative. I kind of wish there was a little bit less CGI with some of the monsters, but I understand realistically they're doing the best they can with the budgets. The budget isn't like endless where they could just produce giant animatronic monsters all the time, so I kind of forgive it. But I think the show is doing something very unique. I think it's involving. I think all of the characters are easy to care about. There's a lot of things that happen where you put the characters in danger within 1 or 2 episodes, and as soon as a character encounters danger, you already fear for their lives as if you've been watching the series for a long time. So I think it does a good job of establishing its world right away and making you care for everybody who's all of the characters in. And all of the actors, like you said, are phenomenal. What's her name? I don't know if I'm saying her name. Jumi Smollett as Letitia.
Yes, that's my new crush right there. I'm crushing on her pretty hard.
Between her and Jonathan Majors, you have, I think, really spectacular leads. I think that their chemistry is believable. They're both very likable, and you instantly want to cheer for them. Having somebody like Michael K. Williams on here, who was also on the HBO series The Wire, and the other HBO series Boardwalk Empire, kind of gives it a feel of, I don't know, like a level of classiness. He's always been a great actor. He always seems to come on HBO series. I notice that seems to be his thing right now. I love Courtney B. Vance as George Freeman, absolutely standout. And oh yes, what is her name? Yes, Abby Lee Kershaw as Christina Braithwaite. Where have I seen her before?
I'm not sure.
I feel like, okay, this is where she's from. The Neon Demon and Mad Max Fury Road.
That's where I seen her, Neon Demon, and then she was one of the virgins from, or the main villain's women from Mad Max. Huh?
Yes. I knew I'd seen her before. She has that kind of quality that feels instantly familiar the second that you lay eyes on her. One of the other interesting things about this is it's not based on anything that Lovecraft wrote. But the feeling I get, let me see if you get the same idea. The idea behind the series is everything that H.P. Lovecraft wrote about is probably real and based on something that exists in reality, right?
Yeah. And it was written by a novelist who addressed the racism of Lovecraft.
See,
It almost seems like the story wants to rub how ridiculous racism is into the face of Lovecraft, you know?
I kind of get the same feeling off of it too, because H.P. Lovecraft was a brilliant writer. He had such an amazing imagination. However, and no, I don't excuse it based on the era. I don't, just for the audience out there to be aware. He was extremely racist. The stuff that he said about non-white people, or the way that he described black people, was, quite frankly, it was disgusting. It was hateful. It was mean-spirited. And it's disappointingly ignorant from somebody who is obviously so brilliant. And it just shows you that you could be the most brilliant, complex mind in the world. That doesn't mean that you're not susceptible to brainwashing and ignorance, overtaking your mind. So I love that they really get to the root of H.P. Lovecraft's, how ridiculous his racism is, while at the same time celebrating how wonderful his imagination was and how much he gave to the horror genre. And I feel that it's kind of like wrestling with, it's kind of like a cultural wrestling that's going on within the show, because I know that a lot of black people in horror love H.P. Lovecraft, while acknowledging the problems that they have with him and some of the issues that they have with his really awful points of view. So it seems like it's kind of redeeming some of H.P. Lovecraft's, it redeems everything that's wonderful about it, while dismissing, like you said, everything that's hateful about his ideology and his worldview. And I think it's kind of, in a weird way, it's both a tribute and a slap in the face to Lovecraft at the same time. It's a tribute to his imagination, but it's kind of like a backhand for him being so ignorant. And I love the idea. When I first heard about it, I thought it was really ballsy to take such the concept of Lovecraft and give it an almost all black cast and set it during the height of the civil rights era. I thought that was a really genius idea. I like the way that it inverts so much of it. There's a lot going on in this series. There's so much to parse through, so much to think about. I'm loving it so far. I think it's excellent.
Well, there's one thing that's truly sad that I've seen since this show came out. Now, first of all, I think the quality of this show is undeniable.
Yeah.
But if you look at some of the social media posts, it's just HBO Max putting up little trailers or teasers from Lovecraft Country and advertising their service, right?
Mm-hmm.
You would not believe the cesspool of comments under there. People calling it a racist piece of shit show, saying, why is Jordan Peele shoving racism down our throats? This is irresponsible for this show to come out during this time. And it's just the same kind of ignorance that H.P. Lovecraft I still see in 2020.
Yeah, that's definitely a problem. It was the same thing that happened with Watchmen on last year, another HBO show that added a lot of black characters to an otherwise primarily white mythology.
And this was based on a novel with mostly all black characters in the time of racism in the South. And to not have racism in it would be completely ignoring a big part of being black at that time in the South. And it's a lot of it mirrors what I was still seeing in the South up to 95 when I left. Mm-hmm. And I still see it there to this day. So to deny it and get pissed that it's shown is just pure ignorance to me.
And you're from Mississippi, right, Mike? Any audience members who are not aware. So you've been in the thick of it. You've actually seen it, and you've seen a pan how ugly it could be and how prejudice actually works.
Yeah, and I also experienced being an outsider because I was up north in Illinois until I was 12. So I moved to Mississippi in the 5th grade at the age of 12. Mm-hmm. So I was an outcast as well. I was called the Yankee. Mm-hmm. And told every day that the South was going to rise again and shit like that, and having Confederate flags everywhere, and getting into high school and them threatening that there was going to be a race war just because a black boy fought back when there was a bunch of bullies bullying him.
See, stuff like that just shows you how important it is to try to still tell these stories. And I think using horror is a good means to try to tell stories like this, because we all may have certain disagreements, and some of us are more ignorant than others, but there are certain things that unite a lot of people, and a lot of people like horror movies. Smart people like horror movies, and ignorant people like horror movies. Progressive people like horror movies, as well as racist people like horror movies. So what I think the show does, it uses something that is universally, like something that's a little bit universal, something that we can all relate to, and tries to put a spin on it so you can understand a perspective outside of your own if you're not part of that community and if you don't get it. And I have to say, it has been really disappointing as a horror fan to see the reactions, not to just this show, but to the presence of Jordan Peele in general.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, most horror films, and I say this as a Mexican person, Mexican Native American person growing up, it's primarily white film. It's primarily white. And you know what? I don't take issue with that. I understand that's how the culture was. It's not something that I think very deeply about, or I'm not troubled by the fact that so much I like is that. But I just don't understand how everything is primarily white, and the instant that you see a person of color in horror, you're shoving race down your throats. So what is it when it's all white people? Is that shoving race down my throat, or is it only?
Yeah.
It seems really selective. The idea is really strange, and let's be honest about it. A lot of these horror fans that are complaining about the social messages in modern horror are ignorant as fuck and really stupid. Is for one thing, all of these things have already existed in horror for a very long time. People have been using the horror genre for, even going before film and television, just going back to literature, as a form of allegories, as a form of storytelling to try to teach a lesson, to try to communicate certain ideas. Night of the Living Dead did that. I see a lot of people who praise and love George Romero, who are also complaining about the political messages that are being put into horror movies these days. It's like, did you even pay attention to his movies at all? The Night of the Living Dead is very much about segregation and racism. Dawn of the Dead is about consumerism and capitalism. And I understand that everybody who watches horror, that there's different political leanings, but we have to understand that a lot of the things that you think don't have a message actually do. They just flew over your head. I think it's because we're living in such a heightened era. People think that these messages are new, or they're being shoved into our art all of a sudden, when really they were always there. It just kind of flew over most people before.
Yeah, and it's not wholly political. It's reality.
Mm-hmm. It's reality. It's reality.
And a lot of people are so uncomfortable with facing that reality head on, and you have to, because it's still going on.
Mm-hmm.
So what I wanted to do with this show, since another great thing about the show is each of the first 4 episodes has its own thing. Like they have a similar quality running through them. The cinematography is the same cinematographer each time, and also the same writer. It's all 4 of the first episodes were written by Misha Green, with and the rest of the writers were just mostly story editors. And one of the executive story editors is Matt Ruff, the author of the novel. So it shows why this is consistently quality. And episode 1 was Sundown. It's directed by Yan Demange. He directed White Boy Rick with Matthew McConaughey. And it's about the main character, Atticus, connects with his uncle George and his friend Letitia, and go on a road trip through the Deep South in 1950s in search of his missing father, Montrose. It opens in a really shocking opening, where it opens in this fantastical world of aliens and monsters, and including Cthulhu. My hair stood up on end, and I almost jumped and cheered when I seen Cthulhu come out in the first few minutes of the show. Then it settles into the story, and there's somewhat subtle hints at the fantastical and Atticus's family legacy as we endear to the characters and get pissed when they deal with the racism of the time. But it seems very measured, very patient, and it concentrates on the drama with only hints of horror, and then all of a sudden it's in your face, and there's monsters everywhere. They address Lovecraft's racism right away in this episode. I love the block party scene. The block party scene is awesome, and that's where we get introduced to Letty's sister Ruby. I didn't look to find out, but I think Ruby might be doing her own singing, and I think Letty might be doing her own singing too.
I think she is too.
But man, the music's good, and then the effects with the jaw rip and the arm rip and then it culminates in this ending where they go up to this big house and the guy comes out, "We've been expecting you." It's just a perfect pilot. It plays out like a movie, and it gets you so excited for the rest of it while being its own self-contained story with a beginning, middle, and an end, and a awesome climax.
What I liked about the first episode, it seemed like in episode 1, just the pilot, it seemed like it had enough plot and story for like a handful of episodes or even for half a season. And it goes through it all really fast. It's only like 70 minutes long. It never feels rushed, though. It never feels like the pacing is rushing you to get to a certain point. I find it kind of mind-blowing that they're able to pull off this trick where simultaneously everything is happening really fast, but none of it feels rushed. I feel like a lot of, even some of the best shows, even a show like Breaking Bad, which I love, occasionally the way that show rushed from thing to thing and all these things happen, different things happening, seemed slightly inorganic or unreal, and occasionally I had a couple times questioning it on that show. Just based on the first few episodes alone here, I think they've done a good job of adding a lot of incident and story without making it ever feel like they're speeding through the motions to get to a certain point.
Well, they get to this huge climax in almost every episode, to where it seems like they reach points in the story that you think is not going to be there until the end. There's these big story reveals that you think, oh, they're revealing that already? What's left? And they keep upping the ante with each episode. So
there's a lot of beyond H.P. Lovecraft, there's a lot of literary references sprinkled throughout the show, whether it's to Dracula, just a lot of different things. Do you think the main character, Atticus Freeman, do you think that's a reference to Atticus Finch from To Kill a Mockingbird?
I didn't think of that.
Because Atticus, with all the literary references, and Atticus is not a common name, to be one thing. The Uncle George Freeman was a devout, I don't know how is a very educated man, very into the literature scene, knows constantly referencing different things. And since To Kill a Mockingbird is roughly kind of from the same era, and since Atticus was somebody who fought for racial justice at a time when it was not considered a good thing, do you think it's possible that might have been the reason the character's named Atticus?
Could be, yeah, because like you said, there's a lot of literary references in there, and the Uncle George is like a book fanatic. He has tons of books all over his wall, very prized possessions of his.
Yeah.
So I love the difference. A lot of people aren't liking episode 2 compared to 1, and I do like the episode 1 better, but episode 2 felt more like a TV show. The first one felt like a movie, like a self-contained movie. Like it just that one episode would have been an entertaining little story. But episode 2 is Whitey's on the Moon. It's also written by Misha Green, as I explained, and it's directed by Daniel Sackheim. And to show you why this one felt more like a TV show, this is a director who directed episodes of ER, NYPD Blue, The X-Files, House MD, The Walking Dead, and Game of Thrones. And this one's about Christina and her brother Samuel, played by Tony Goldwyn. I love that actor. Are introduced, and they unveil plans for Atticus I didn't think we'd see until the end of the season. And each character endures unwelcome flashbacks of their life, which was awesome addition to the story and an awesome addition to the history of the characters, and makes you feel for them even more. And I love the unexpectedly light opening. You have a really heavy cliffhanger at the end of episode 1, and all of a sudden the Jeffersons theme is playing. I've always loved that song. We're moving on up to the east side, as the characters inexplicably are excited to be in such a strange place. And then it's all explained as a couple of the other episodes are like that, where it's very strange behavior for these characters happen, and then it explains why. So the Braithwaite's massive power to manipulate is shown in this episode, and it goes extremely fantastical, even more than the first episode, and it feels like a series finale to me. I was even more interested where this is going after such a huge climax.
That's what I was saying.
And then I also loved the running theme of Whitey's.
Really quick, the climax felt like the season was ending.
It did.
Just seeing the full season, you're going to have to wait until next year to get the rest of the story. But it sounded like a season finale's climax, not a episode 2 climax.
Definitely. And it goes big and epic.
Yeah.
And things cave in. I won't give too much away, but everything goes to shit. And you think, oh, shit, that's a whole section of the story I thought we were going to be with for a while. But now it's done. But I love the running theme of Whitey's on the Moon throughout the episode, and it even has the original recording of the spoken word song by Jill Scott Heron in 1970 of Whitey's on the Moon. I've loved that song for years, and it's a song about the guy saying his sister got bit by rats and all this terrible things because of the condition that they're living in as Black people. But he says, but Whitey's on the moon. So he's basically saying your own people are suffering here. We're suffering on a daily basis, and it's a lot of us that are suffering, but you're worried about going to the moon. Mm-hmm. So I thought that helped drive the message home of this episode.
It kind of illustrates, they do a lot of things like that, but it kind of illustrates the difference, especially at that point in time, how the kind of racial disparity that existed between two different parts of society. On the one hand, you have white people, which was considered, in quotes, normal America at the time. And then you had Black people. And of course, I don't mean to oversimplify it. There's obviously a great complexity to the racial makeup of the United States. But it really helps to drive home the feeling of living in two different worlds, where Black people experience America as one thing and white people experience it as something else. And I really like how this episode drives that home. I really like that Jill Scott Heron. That was actually the first time I heard that. I had never heard it before, and I went and I looked it up after. Really good episode. I actually thought it was just about as good as the first one. I didn't detect any drop off in quality, and I think it ends on a particularly heavy note.
Yeah, I think it's just how fantastical it went.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of people didn't expect it to go that epic and fantastical so quickly. Mm-hmm. And it does feel a little bit more episodic. It kind of sets you up for the next section of the story.
Yeah. And which is episode 3.
Yeah, and episode 3 is Holy Ghost. It's also written by Misha Green, directed by Daniel Sackheim again. And it's about Letty hopes to mend her relationship with Sister Ruby by inexplicably buying a huge Victorian mansion and turning it into a boarding house. So this one opens up new layers in the relationship of the two sisters, and one especially impactful scene between them. Don't you agree?
I agree.
Where Ruby challenges her sister about her intentions about buying that house, and it kind of changes Letty's it changes her idea about her own intentions. Mm-hmm. Because she tells her, if you're claiming this is such a righteous move to buy this house, why are you just moving all your artist friends in here? Mm-hmm. Instead of really underprivileged people of the area? And that was really big wake up call for her, and really powerful scene.
Yeah. The character interactions of this kind of in this one remind me a little bit of a Mike Flanagan film, or actually something like The Haunting of Hill House, where if you're one of those people who's not into horror with like the storytelling and the deep complexity between characters, I think this is going to show, the episode will show you that it might not be for you, because as much as there's fantastic elements going on here, all the monsters, all of the horror, the show really slows down in parts, and I mean this in a good way, to show you the full complexity of these different relationships. These are not like simplistic relationships. They're complex relationships like in real life. The types of relationships that we have with relatives, the mixture of resentment, bitterness, love, and understanding all at the same time. And I really love that the story goes in such a short amount of time. The characters seem very, very defined, and their relations to one another, their interpersonal relationships seem very defined. And within 3 episodes, I think you get a strong idea of where everybody stands in every other person's life. I really like that. There's a real sense of place. You know what I mean? They really go a long way to try to establish these characters as people you could possibly know in your life, with problems that obviously we're not all going to relate to all the struggles they're going through with the civil rights movement, but their interpersonal family drama is something that I think anybody could relate to.
Yeah, and racism is woven throughout the narrative, but this is one of the ones where it rises up to the forefront of the story again, because the white people in the area are what am I trying to say?
Basically, clan.
Yeah, like they're typically agitated by not only a black family or black people moving into the area, but they're moving a bunch of black people in it. So all the white people in the area are all agitated, and they're burning a cross in their yard, and you really feel the hurt that inflicts on their heart, because there's a lot of anger when they look out their window and see a burning cross.
Mm-hmm.
But you feel the hurt and the pain that it causes them at the same time.
Yeah, that's really, really heavy stuff. This is probably the heaviest episode as far as racism goes, to show you the full effect of how it degrades the quality of people's lives. It's the best way that I could put it. And it was an interesting contrast that it seems a little not as fantastical as the preceding episode. It seems like this one, they're taking more time to delve into the relationships and how racism affects them personally. And that's another great thing that I love about the show, is that each episode is able to concentrate on different facets or different aspects of the series. It's not just constantly the story unfolding. One episode you might get a big climax and get more. Another episode you might get to deep character interactions. You might get to understand things at a deeper level. I think they, like, within 3 episodes, they do a great mix of these big, giant climaxes mixed in with these deeply intimate, personal moments between human beings.
Yeah, and in episode 3, you see these deep character interactions, and you feel the story is advancing. You're learning more about the characters, and then it also builds up into its own self-contained little ghost story about the ghosts in that house. And then you feel like you find out that it's no accident that they're there, and it's no accident that they were deliberately put in a house with these powerful spirits in them. And then it builds up into this huge effects-driven ghost battle climax. And I particularly love big climax endings where there's a battle against ghosts, like in House by the Cemetery. And this is one of the best I've ever seen. And this episode as a whole is excellent drama mixed with horror once again. And then you see more of Christina's intentions and her power are revealed, and I think it's all pitch perfect for me.
And the climax is kind of unexpected too, because up to this point, I think episode 3 was the most grounded of all 3 episodes as far as human drama and interpersonal relationships. And just when you think that's when the whole episode is going to be like that, it ends with, like you said, a really big climax. Great, a lot of imagination. I don't want to ruin what it actually consists of, because I feel like the audience should discover it on their own. But they do a great job of mixing in traditional horror, the imagery that's in there, the way that the ghosts look, and the way that their bodies have been experimented on, mixed with real life racism and horror and prejudice and that type of fear. I thought the way that they mixed those 2 different elements of horror blended together perfectly, and they seem to enhance each other.
And then on top of all that, the passion of Letitia's character really coming to a head, and she just pushes everything out of her. I just felt every bit of her emotion, her passion, her anger, her hurt, all that just poured out of her in that big climax. And it's not often you see that level of emotion and passion in such an effects-laden climax like that. I was just floored by it.
I agree. Their standout episode. And the last episode that has been released so far is A History of Violence.
Yes, and as I mentioned, this was once again written by Misha Green, directed by Victoria Mahoney this time. it didn't feel like it, but this is a fairly newer director than the first 3 episodes. She hasn't done much. It's just like 1 or 2 episodes here and there of television. But this one's about Christina shows up at Letty's door and tells her of Tick's plans to return to Florida. And they end up taking a trip with Montrose to a museum in Boston to find missing pages to a crucial text, with Hippolyta and daughter Diana along for the ride. Meanwhile, William connects with Ruby in a big way. Mm-hmm. The sister Ruby.
I like this episode, but it's probably my least favorite of the 4. Not because of a drop off in quality. It's just, I guess, the storytelling beats and preferences that I had. But I don't think every episode is going to be your favorite. So, but I still enjoyed it.
Yeah, I liked this one a little more than I did the second episode. But I like how it shows even more of like more of Christina's intentions and her power revealed a little bit more in these past 2 episodes. And then including the reason for her brother's death in episode 2, and her connection with the cops. And this one really brought to the forefront for me how old music is playing in the background in the scenes, and then modern music is put into the soundtrack, which that's another complaint I've seen from people, but I love the way it feels. It feels it's bringing a modern twist to an old story.
That's something that Tarantino does. Like Django Unchained uses Tupac on the soundtrack. I'm still up in the air on how I feel about that. To be honestly, I don't think it's necessarily inappropriate, but there are a couple of times when I'm listening to it and it fits thematically, but it does remind me that, I don't know, it sounds like it's coming from a different era than the show takes place, because I think they go through great pains to put in the clothing and the production design and the house and the way things look to try to get a feeling of authenticity that I think it seems, to me anyway, kind of strange to hear like these modern hip-hop songs coming out. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a bad decision, but I think I need to see more of it to see how it works cumulatively. I don't want to say I want to judge it yet because this is only a handful of episodes, but it might be the thing that I'm most iffy on. I'm not against it because, like I said, the music always ends up thematically making a lot of sense, but it does remind me that we're watching a different era. Occasionally, when I get lost in the world, those songs kind of remind me of the world that I'm in right now.
Well, I noticed there's a lot of aspects about this show that keep raising their head as far as there's multiple aspects of it that keeps the excitement, keeps your heart pumping throughout. Mm-hmm. Even when it's telling you this deep emotional story, there's these breaks in between to keep the energy up. And I think that's part of what putting the modern music is in there is for. And then the score as well. The score, a lot of it is really subtle, really atmospheric, and then it turns into bombastic adventure type of big music swells, and the whole search for the lost pages and everything felt very Goonies, Raiders of the Lost Ark, where there's a tiny bridge with a swinging blade going across, and then the cryptic door lock.
See, that stuff right there, I think that might be the reason this might be my least favorite episode. Is that not that any of that's bad, but it seems a little bit more adventure than horror driven in this episode. I didn't feel like the other ones felt like we're dipping in the horror genre, and we're still obviously in the horror genre, but it still had more of like gung-ho adventurism that's a little bit different to me than full-on horror. It's like the difference between Jaws and Jurassic Park. That's the best way to describe it. Not that it doesn't work, but I wish it could have been a little bit scarier. However, I love the siren.
Yeah, the siren.
I really like that episode, and I like how it ends. I'm not going to say how it ends, but Montrose Freeman, Atticus's father, I gotta wonder what his true intentions are, because he seems to be changing his story all the time. He does things that seem untrustworthy, like he's trying to undermine their mission, and then he goes out of his way to help them at the same time. So it's hard to know what's going on with Montrose right now.
He's a very interesting character that gets more interesting with each episode. Just when you think you know what his intentions are, he kind of throws a curveball at you.
Yeah.
And he goes from being a dick to his son to actually inspiring his son, which is something that has happened very few times in Atticus's life, seems like.
And then goes around to being sneaky and completely untrustworthy.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say how, but the ending of the 4th episode kind of shocked me, and it lets me know that there's each episode for the rest of the season is going to have a lot of detail and a lot of story to unpack. So let's see where this heads.
Well, another reason I like this episode is I've liked Ruby from the beginning, Letty's sister, and she hasn't been part of the whole story up to this time. She's part of Letty's life, and she's had important contributions as far as being part of Letty's life. But this is the first time she brought into the story,
The plot.
into this major plot line and the supernatural aspect of it. And holy shit, that sex scene with the Marilyn Manson song playing, damn, it was hot, it was exciting, it was perplexing in a way.
You know, that's actually the one, the Marilyn Manson song is the one time that the modern music didn't feel intrusive, because I can't picture any other song working with that particular scene the way that song works with it.
Yeah, and her whole attitude leading up to it, and then all of a sudden it's happening. Oh, that was awesome.
That's what makes it a good show, because you mentioned that this is barely, this is the 4th episode, and this is where she starts becoming into the plot. Before she even enters the direct plot of what the show is about, you get to really know her and understand her as a person, as a human being. You get to understand her struggles. So by the time she enters the more serious plot elements, you as an audience member already have an attachment to her, and you already have a deep caring for who she is as a person.
It makes me so much more excited about where the story is going to go.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why are they bringing her into it?
Mm-hmm.
And what kind of part is she going to play in it, in the whole scheme of things, you know? Yeah.
So, overall, I'm really excited. I think it shows the full potential for for horror in the form of television, because horror movies are always going to be around, have always been around, will always be around. It seems like the horror genre is really trying to get into television and trying to make its mark on TV, and HBO is doing a great job by picking the series up.
And these two leads, I can't say enough about these two main characters, Letitia and Atticus, because there's a sexual tension there. There's a battle of the sexes thing going on there. There's I think their passion has ignited a couple times, but there's still some underlying thing there. And I love this moment in episode 4 when Atticus is trying to push Letitia away and get her not to finish what they were doing, because he feels like he needs to protect her, and she just screams at him, "Stop acting like this is only happening to you." Mm-hmm. And then she takes the lead. It seems like every time he tries to be the hero, or every time he's painted as the hero in the story, she kind of steals it away from him. Mm-hmm. Like steals the spotlight and the strength, the core strength of the show. Mm-hmm. is really a battle between those two, because he seems to be the strength of the show, and then she takes it back from him, and then they're back and forth like that. And then
the push and pull between those two.
Yeah. And then the part, I won't explain too much, I won't give it away, but the underwater scene where Letitia just keeps going and going when it's kind of hopeless, and then when she saves the day, she kind of emerges from the water and he just grabs her and kisses her. I wanted to do the same thing. Like, holy shit, this chick's a badass. Yeah.
So it's a very I guess empowering horror television series.
Yeah.
It's
and also
that are not usually centered in horror storytelling.
And what about, without saying too much, what about the CGI, the effects when the siren turn from dead to alive.
Oh, that was actually pretty startling.
Oh,
That caught me off guard.
It's scenes like this in a show that get me lean forward and look close and see the wetness of those effects, that they're wet and they're organic and they look like they're present in the scene with the actors.
Mm-hmm.
Such top-notch CGI, dude. Like I don't usually look, like you mentioned, you don't usually like a lot of CGI, but with this it's necessary to show the strength and the power and the speed of these monsters, you know. And then they take really extra care with it to make it look realistic and make it look like you can reach out and touch it.
Yes.
So overall, I'm impressed with everything about this show. I absolutely love it.
So highly recommended for horror lovers out there for a number of reasons. I think this is it takes horror into new territory that we've never seen it before. It's innovative, it feels new, it freshens up the genre. It's also very insightful in its own way. For all of the fantastic happenings in it, all the crazy shit that you see, all the Lovecraftian things, as they would be called, for all the Lovecraftian elements in here, I feel there's a core emotional truths to be found within the show. The heavier elements are very insightful. Even though it's all fantasy and it takes place in a world that doesn't exist, part of it does take place in a world that did exist. So I think it just does a great job of making people understand certain issues at a deeper level using imaginative storytelling. For all the crazy shit that's going on here, it feels emotionally real. It feels raw. And if you remove, I guess, the more fantastic, the Lovecraftian elements of it, you would still have an extremely gripping drama with a very strong sense of time and purpose and character.
Yeah, and I think it's solidifying its place in the horror genre as being a very important addition.
Mm-hmm.
and something that's going to inspire more filmmakers in the future, as far as these filmmakers, Jordan Peele and J.J. Abrams, and then the creator Misha Green, they're showing that you can put real emotion, real drama, you can put a lot of different elements and including budget into horror, and people are going to respond to it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be all fun and games with blood and guts flying everywhere. You can put a lot of different elements together and it still works.
I feel like a show like this is important because it expands the possibilities of the horror genre, and it's going to take it to new territories. And I hope it opens, and I think it will. It's going to open up even more after Get Out with Jordan Peele, who I really appreciate as a contributor to the horror genre. A flood of new voices and new perspectives that we don't normally see in horror films or horror television or even horror literature. So I feel that this show exemplifies an exciting new era of horror. It's already kind of a renaissance as it is, but we're being taken into territory that we've never been before, and I think the future looks bright because of it.
Yeah, and every character in this show, every actor in this show, I want to see more of what they do.
Yes.
And I can't wait, because there's no reason why every actor in the show shouldn't become a big star after this.
Yes, I agree.
Because it seems like everybody involved is going above and beyond to make a quality, impactful, and emotional show with very good horror elements and very good storytelling.
So it's on HBO Max and HBO. So if you got HBO, check it out on demand. It's really worth it. If you got HBO Max, check it out. Keep up with us on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Pickles Horror Show, and keep up with us on our Instagram @Pickles Horror Show. And of course, we're going to put that in the description like we always do. We'll give you updates on our podcast, any future guests that we might be having. We're going to keep you updated on Pay Up, which is Michael's feature film debut, which is currently making its way somewhat into the festival circuit at this point. We'll keep you updated with Horror Show, our horror variety series that's still kind of on the back burner at the moment during this coronavirus situation.
We just created a new link that kind of puts all of our stuff together, all the places where you can see the podcast or listen to it. and all of our social media and everything is called Flow. So we created a Flow page. So at flow.page/Ghostman and Rivera, you'll find everywhere the podcast is playing and our social media and everything, so you can keep up with everything that we're doing.
And listen to us on the platform of your choice, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, or YouTube. Till next week, folks, happy horror.
Happy horror.